שבוע טוב ומבורך. ברשות הרבנים and all the members that are here tonight, on behalf of this wonderful organization called Emet. I wasn't really given talking points tonight, which I appreciate that. I like to speak my mind. I met with the rabbi on Thursday and he gave me a briefing of what your organization does. I was blown away. It's hard for me to imagine that we have such thorough, proper organizations that are doing the job the right way, as you heard in the video. From love, non-judgmental, soft hands, white gloves. And it's producing, especially in this community, it's producing results. I want to talk about the name of your organization, Emet. I think it's very appropriate that you chose it. Well, I know that you know the word Emet means truth, but I don't think you realize the depth and the weight that this word carries. You know, the Midrash says on the Pasuk in Tehillim, Rosh Devarecha Emet. David HaMelech said, when God began his Torah, the beginning of the Bible, he opened the Torah with his signature. The Gemara says in Ketuvot that when God signs, he signs his name Emet. Vadonai Elohim Emet. So when God writes the Torah, he signs his name in the beginning, almost like an artist. That if you look in the bottom right corner of a picture, you'll see the signature. So the Midrash asks, where do you see the word Emet in the beginning of the Torah? Well, if you take the first three words, Bereshit, Bara, Elohim. Well, the last letter of Bereshit is a Taf. Bara, the last letter, is an Aleph. And Elohim is a Mem. Well, if you boggle the letters around, it spells Emet. So therefore, God put his signature right in the beginning. And if you look at the end of creation, after the 6 days, when God finally rested, it says, Asher bara Elohim la'asot, that God rested from the work that he did. And if you look at those words, Asher bara, the last letter of bara is an aleph, Elohim is a mem, and la'asot is a taf. Again, you have emet. So God put his name in the beginning of the creation and at the end of the creation. But there's a great rabbi called Rabbi Yonatan Eibeshitz. He explained it in a much deeper level. It's a question that I always had, and maybe you thought about it also. When God started the Torah, he starts it with the letter Bet. Bereshit. And the question is obvious, why didn't God start the Torah with Aleph? I mean, so you could say what, Ereshit? No, I'm not saying you should start and make up a new word that doesn't exist. But God can do anything he wants. He could say Elohim bara, start with an Aleph. So some say he did start with an Aleph. Because really the Torah begins when God gave the 10 Commandments. And the 10 Commandments begin with Anochi. So there's your Aleph. Okay, that's an answer. But the question is, start the Torah with an Aleph. Instead, God skips the Aleph and starts with the Bet. Bereshit. Why? Rav Yonatan says something incredible. It's a little mathematical, but you don't need a calculator for what I'm going to say. We'll do fine. If you take the word emet, well, it's an aleph, it's a mem, and a taf. The numerical value of those three letters is 441. I know that number doesn't mean anything to you, but it means a lot. Because if you take the letters or the numbers 441 and you make what's called mispar katan, which means you count those letters, 4 plus 4 plus 1, you get to the magic number of 9. Anytime you see a number 9, Grab it. Hold on to it. The 9 is the number of Emet. As opposed to the opposite of Emet, which clearly is not your organization, would be Sheker. Well, Sheker is a Shin, a Kof, and a Resh. A Shin is 300, and a Kof is 100, and a Resh is 200. Sheker actually equals 600. Well, if you do the same system, 6 plus 0 plus 0, you get 6. Well, that means the number 6 represents Sheker. Now, I don't mean to offend you if you're sitting on table 6 tonight. I have no intention of offending anybody, but I'm talking theoretical. 9 is the number of Emet, and 6 is the number of Sheker. The Kabbalah talks about this a lot. Now let's talk a little about numbers and mathematics. If you start counting from the number 1, 3 digits, 1, 2, 3. Just 3 digits, 1 plus 2 plus 3. I could do that without even using my hands. 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6. Now, we don't like that number. So let's forget about 1, 2, 3. Let's go to the next 3 numbers. 4, 5, 6. Well, 4 plus 5 is 9. 9 and 6 is 15. 1, 5. That's 6 again. Doesn't work. I don't like that. Well, let's try it one more time. We did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm only doing one more. 7, 8, 9. It's got to work now. 7 plus 8 is 15. 15 plus 9 is 24. 2, 4. 6 again, you're right. So it's not a good idea to start counting from the number 1. So Rabbi Eibishit says, well, how about you start counting from the number 2? So let's do the same experiment, but this time we start from the number 2. 2 plus 3 plus 4. You have it. 2, 3, 4 is actually 9. That's Emet. 5, 6, 7 is 18. 1 and 8. It's 9 again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8, 9, 10. That equals 27. 2 plus 7 is 9. So the rabbi has an experiment that's proven, and you can do this forever. I don't have forever tonight, but you can do it forever. When you start from 1, you'll always get to Sheker. When you start from 2, you'll always get to Emet. So when the Torah begins, it doesn't want to start with an Aleph. Because if you start with an Aleph, starting with the 1, you get to Sheker. So the Pasuk says, Rosh devarecha Emet. Your Torah started with the letter that represents Emet, the letter Bet. Because when you start counting from the number 2, you'll always come to a summation of 9. Rosh devarecha Emet. And there's other fascinating things about the number 9, which is Emet. You could try it yourself. I won't go through the whole room tonight. I did the experiment before I came. Anything that you attach the number 9 to will always bring you back to the number 9. When there's Emet, Emet will always come back to the truth. For example, my name is Eliyahu, but you could do it with your name as well, but I did it with my name. The numerical value of Eliyahu is 52. It's an easy one. I know 5 and 2 is 7. I'm not talking about that. Well, it could have been worse. It could have been 6, but nonetheless, Eliyahu equals 52. Take your name, whatever your name is. Rachel, Sarah, Avraham, Yaakov. Doesn't matter what your name is. It doesn't matter, even if it's a long name, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. It doesn't matter what your name is. Take your name. I'm taking my name, Eliyahu, and I'm adding 9 to it. I'm not adding, I'm going to times it by 9. Multiply it by 9. I'm adding Emet to my name. 52 times 9. I did the math before I got here. It's a difficult one. It equals 468. Okay, it's a random number. That number means nothing to me. 468. Well, 4 plus 6 is 10. Plus 8, it's 18. 1 and 8 is 9. You could do that with any of your names. Any Jewish name that you have, always times it by 9, which is the number of Emet. Whatever number you're going to get, count the numbers up. It'll always come back to the number 9. That's the secret. Well, you can clap for that. Well, I hope I don't lose your attention because now you're all going to be calculating your names. Please give me just a few more minutes. You can do it after I leave. It works. I'll leave you my number. If it doesn't work, you can call me back. Well, what I really like to come to talk to you about tonight is not numbers and, different tricks like that, although it's fascinating. I want to tell you an encounter that I had because while I'm not so hands-on like your organization is really dealing with every patient in a very, very personal way, I give lectures to large audiences like this. I travel the world. Unfortunately, I don't have too much interaction. I get up at the pulpit, I give my speech, hopefully it's accepted, I escape, and I go on to the next one. But one time during my escape, I got caught. And a student caught me at the door and said, "You always say that the Torah's Emet, the Torah's Emet, Torah's truth. Why are you so sure of that? There's a lot of books in the library." This person actually referred to me of a book I wasn't aware of. It's called The Book of Etiquette. It was written by Emily Post. It's a big book, I found out. And she actually tells you what's right and what's wrong. She tells you what's considered ethical and what's considered unethical. She tells you what's considered proper conduct and what's considered improper conduct. So his question was, why not, at least when it comes to ethics? I know Emily Post might not be an authority on Hilchot Shabbat. She clearly is not an authority on, Hilchot Yom Tov or the laws of Kiddushin. So we're not going to trust her for that. But why can't we trust her to give us ethics? She's an authority after all. She sold millions and millions of copies of this book. So why do you come and tell us that ethics and values must emanate from the Torah? Because the Torah's Emet. Why not use the book of etiquette? That was the question. I'd like to give you the short answer. I'm so excited that our organization, its starting point is the book, is the Torah. Because only the Torah has truth. What do I mean to say? Today on college campuses, there's a new phenomenon that's going on. I don't know if you're aware of it. Well, a lot of you are educated and sophisticated, so you might have heard of it. It wasn't around when we were young. It's called relativism. Relative. You might have heard of the theory of relativity. But this is not that. This is the concept of relativism, which means when I talk and use a word, the word has to be explained in the context that I'm saying it relative to other things. For example, if I say, this man over here is very rich, well, that's a relative terminology. Who am I comparing him to? If I'm comparing him to a pauper, indeed, he's very rich. But if I'm comparing him to Bill Gates, so he's really not that rich. It's a relative terminology. If I say this boy is the smartest kid in the class, it's relative. I don't know who the class is. If the class is in Harvard, bunch of geniuses, that's a compliment. But if it's not in that type of situation where the kids are really not so sharp, so then that smart compliment is relative. But today's society has taken things that are not really subject to a relative interpretation. Certain things are what we called, as was mentioned, absolute. Like 1 + 1 = 2. That's absolute. That's not relative to anything. And this speaker over here is black. It's not relative to anything. It's a fact. It's absolute. But today, everybody has their own, what we call relative truths. The truth means whatever you want it to mean, whatever is comfortable to you, and therefore we have to respect everybody's interpretation of how they define what used to be absolute terms, what used to be genuine concepts. Now it's, well, I don't look at it that way. So if somebody would come in and say, Rabbi, I took offense. I heard you in his speech said that speaker over there was black. I believe that it's white. Now, in the olden days, we would ask him for his mother's name and put him on the Tehillim list. And that would be totally acceptable, unless he's colorblind. If he's colorblind, then we don't judge that. But if he claims that it's white, we say miskin, he's the poor guy. Today, however, you can't say he's wrong. You have to say, well, we have to agree to disagree. We have to be very politically correct. That you look at it as white, and I respect that. I have no problem with that. But I look at it as black. So we took something that's absolute, and we've turned it now into relativism. It's relative to the way you see it, and therefore there's no truth anymore. Everybody has their own interpretation of truth. And I don't want to spoil your dinner, but to show you how far off the rails we've gone with this, there was recently a case, actually in a hospital in New York. Well, you shouldn't be shocked that this type of ideology reaches New York. It's usually, it's created here. It's hibernated in New York. What happened? Lady was in the hospital. She gave birth. The doctor, who I guess is naive, he doesn't know about relativism. So when the baby was born, he turned to the mom and he said, "Congratulations, it's a baby boy." And she said, "I'm offended. We're going to wait till he grows up, or it grows up, to decide what it wants to be. How dare you come along and decide for this child?" Now, when I was young, a boy was a boy, a girl was a girl. There's telltale signs to figure that out. It's a very simple equation. You don't got to do mathematics for that. It's very obvious. And that's not relative. I'm not a relative boy to somebody else. That's something that's fact. I don't need to compare myself to other people to know what I am. But today, well, you have to let the person decide that. It's very personal. So please don't tell me what I am. So you have to be very careful today. So if you're on a college campus, when you see somebody walking down the street, you have to say, wow, what a nice person you are. Because you don't want to commit. Now, somebody did that, and they still got into trouble. They were in a college campus. They saw somebody. They said, "Be careful. Don't commit what it is, because, the person has his own relative truth, and he decides what he wants to decide. And don't refer to his gender or her gender." It's fine. Thanks for telling me. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. So he goes up to the person working and says, "You know something? You're a very fine person." He comes along and says, "I'm a giraffe." "Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you're a giraffe. I was so caught up thinking if you were a boy or a girl. I didn't even think that you could be yeah, because I look at myself as an animal." "Okay, fine. Hey, let's pet the giraffe. Let's take a picture with the giraffe." And I respect you for that. If that's what you believe you are, all the respect. It's laughable. But this is what's happening today in society. There's no more truth. There's no more absolutes. So you need to go to a book that's not subject to political correctness. It's not subject to bias or prejudice. Now, the only entity in the world that's not subject to any of these things is God. Everybody else that's going to give you an ethical opinion, including Emily Post, it's subjective. Subjective means that it's based on their personal opinions and their biases, and therefore you're not going to get a real, pure opinion of right and wrong. And as a matter of fact, it'll change over time. Something that's emet cannot change. The truth doesn't change. 1 plus 1 equaled 2 1,000 years ago, and it'll equal 2 in 1,000 years from now. It's genuine. It's absolute. Whereas, if you look at some of the ethics that Emily Post writes in a book, she had to revise the book, I think, 15 times already. Because what was considered wrong in one generation now becomes right, and right because it's synthetic, it's man-made. And people's ideas of right and wrong just fluctuate with times based on different pressures. I'll give you an example. And again, I don't want to offend anybody. That means I might offend somebody. But it's not my intention, put it that way. You know, in this country, this great country, the United States of America, when it was founded in early 1776, whenever it was, the founding fathers were religious people. They had Judeo-Christian values. There was a movement by Jefferson that actually the official language of America, they wanted it to be Hebrew. Could you imagine that? Hebrew, the official, because it's the language of the Bible. But then they decided against it. They made it Spanish. But the point is, the first founding fathers were religious people, and they believed that there's a certain sanctity of life. Sanctity of life. They believed in it. Those days, if somebody would come along and take the life of an unborn child, it was considered a federal crime. The United States was punished that with death. Death. And nobody questioned it. They understood lo tirtzach, and they understood it, don't murder. It's one of the 10 Commandments. Many years later, as society thinks they're getting more sophisticated, because society always thinks that they evolve to become better people, although we know that that's not always true. As society evolves, they make more lethal weapons and more, different ways to kill more people. So society doesn't always evolve in a more progressive way. Nonetheless, 9 judges in Washington, well, they're Supreme Court justices. They put on their black robes, gives them extra wisdom, and they started to ponder. They're turning their heads, and they're pondering, which is not a legal question, really. It's a philosophical question. And they came along and they said, well, we all agree. Let's take a vote first. Who agrees that you shouldn't murder? 9-0 on that one. That was unanimous. Lo tirtzah, don't murder. All right, now we get to the second question. When does life begin? Oh, that's a good question. We never thought about that. So the justices thought, now there's no law book you can go look in that. So this is just an opinion. So you have 9 people that are going to decide for 300 million people based on their vote, which is a very narrow vote anyway. And they end up deciding, you know what? After thinking about it for a couple of days, and must be we're the most experienced to answer this question because we're wearing black robes, and we have, tenure for life, so we can't get this wrong. We have decided now that life begins outside of the womb. That's it. Everybody agree? Not everybody, but we have a majority. So be it. That's the law of the land. So therefore, if life begins outside the womb, we really don't care what you do as long as the baby doesn't emerge. Beautiful. They made a new definition, a definition that the world hadn't heard for 2,000 years. That's my point. Something that we thought was absolute, which should have been absolute, but when you let humans start getting involved in it, for whatever their bias is, I have a whole talk on what their bias was. It's clear that they were being influenced by a lot of things, but look what happened. They redefined. Well, it's very crafty and clever. They didn't redefine murder because they said you can't murder. They just redefined what life is. Well, obviously, if you redefine life, it's going to affect then how do you define murder? Okay, fine. Let's say we accept it. But it didn't end there. A case came to the courts. I'm just trying to show you why your values can only come from the Torah. What happens? There's an old lady, she's in the hospital, and she's on a respirator or feeding tube, and they come along, the doctors, and they say, listen, she's really not going to make it, so we want to stop feeding her. And the children say, no, what do you mean stop feeding her? I can just stop feeding her. She's like, this is our mother. Yeah, but she's not going to make it anyway, so we want to stop feeding her. If you stop feeding her, you're going to starve her to death. She's going to die. The case came to the Supreme Court. I'm fast forwarding. Now they had a big dilemma because they already decided that life begins outside the womb, and this 95-year-old lady was out of the womb already for 95 years. So they said, we got a problem here. She's outside the womb already. That's a problem. We can't put her back in the womb, because if we could put her back in the womb, then we could kill her. That's not a problem. But she's outside the womb already, and we can't get her back into the womb. So how could we kill her? So we have to figure it out. Oh, well, you know what? Let's go back to talking about life. Life must be defined by quality. After all, what is life? Life is about quality of life. You could eat, you could sleep, you could do the waltz, you could golf, you could hit a tennis ball, you could go to the theater. That's all things that we do, and it's quality. Now let's put our new definition and see if it applies to this lady. Can she eat? Poor thing, she can't. Can she walk? She can't. Can she golf? No. Can she swing a tennis racket? No. She can't do any of these things. So she really has no quality. Well, according to our new definition, she has no quality, she has no life. And they ruled, pull the plug. You see what happens when you let humans start to play around with values? Starts with one definition. And don't think it's over. Don't think it's over. It'll keep on digressing and keep on sinking and falling to lower levels. Maybe it didn't get to our country yet, but there was a case in Denmark where a boy came to the doctor. He was 16 years old. And he says, I'm very depressed. Oh, that's not good. Depression is a terrible thing. Why are you depressed? Oh, my girlfriend, she just broke up with me. Oh, that's devastating. So therefore, what do you want to do? Well, you're licensed to kill. So I don't want to live anymore. So he says, oh, you came to the right guy? Yeah, you can't live with that on your head. Guy like that, 16 years old, girlfriend broke up with you. How could you go on? It's about, you have insurance card? Yeah, I have my insurance card. Here it is. You have to sign your name because you're less than 18 years old. You have to sign a couple of papers over there. Before you know it, they put him out of his misery. It didn't happen in this country, although there was Dr. Death. If you remember, Kevorkian was in this country. He was doing it. And in his state, he was getting away with it. Dr. Death. My point is, you can't rely on synthetic values, because synthetic values are going to change from time to time, and they take things that are not subject to relativism. They shouldn't be subject to change. Values must come from God. And God's book is Emet. It's the ultimate truth. You see, I don't know how the ethicists, when we were young, I don't know if they do it over here, but we were young. Our parents used to read us books before we went to sleep. I don't know why they read us these books. They should read us stories from the prophets, Nevi'im, Humash. But those days wasn't accepted. You'd read, fairy tales. And one night, my mother read to me the story of Robin Hood. You might have heard of that story. Robin Hood used to, if I remember correctly, I haven't heard it in many years, Robin Hood used to rob from the rich and give to the poor. And the book is basically saying, those rich people have so much money. They have a lot of money. And it's not right. And the poor people have no money. So Robin Hood would settle the score. He would go in the middle of the night, rob from the rich and give to the poor. Now, obviously, as we get older, we realize that this was a book to indoctrinate young minds into socialism. Because Robin Hood basically was a communist. But put that on the side. Put that on the side. When we were all young, for whatever reason, we always looked at Robin Hood as a hero. Because, the rich guy that he stole from, he's not going to feel it anyway. And the poor guy could really use the money. So it's a win-win. The rich guy's not going to change his life. And the poor guy, it made a good change in his life. So Robin Hood's a hero. But now plug Robin Hood into the Torah. He's a felon. He's a crook. The man is a thief. He's a ganav. Does the Torah allow us to steal from the rich to give to the poor? But again, if you let humans decide that, they'll say, well, yes, stealing is wrong. But if you're doing it to divide wealth evenly, then it's not called stealing. That's called equality. Just change the terminologies. Play around with it. It's all semantics anyway. And you start legalizing the worst crimes. And we can go on and on. I'll just conclude with one more example. Before I, bless all of you, I'm very impressed. I don't know why God puts certain people in certain places at certain points in history. Probably has a lot to do with things that are beyond our comprehension, with Gilgul Neshamot and all that stuff. But the fact that you're at the forefront of this movement, what is zichut? What is zichut? That you're involved now in trying to stem off assimilation and try to bring back Emet, true values to these kids. I don't think you can appreciate, when I'm watching this video, I'm seeing these kids, not what they are, but I can only imagine what they would have been. Now they have tzura, they have an image, a tzelem Elohim you could see on them. You see the image of God. You see their speech is refined. They're talking in a proper way. And that's to the credit of Emet and its supporters. So the fact that God has put you in this position, you should consider yourself very, very fortunate and very, very lucky. Somebody that saves one soul in the Jewish nation as if he saved the whole entire world. And you people are involved in saving the world 1,000 times over and over every single day. So I'll conclude. You have my compliments and you have my full emotional and moral support. Many years ago, in our community, the Syrian community in Brooklyn, we got a deal for the summer. It's a resort on the Jersey Shore in South Jersey. They came out with a journal, the town came out with a journal celebrating its 100th year. It's not such an old town, 100 years. And everybody who lives in the town gets a journal. They deliver it to the house. So I got my journal, I'm looking at it. It's nice to see what the town looked like 100 years ago, what the police station looked like, what Ocean Avenue looked like, what the, Norwood, all the different places that we know what it looks like today, you see what 100 years ago. So I said this would make a good topic for a speech. The rabbis see everything in the terms of speech. So I took the journal and I brought it to the shul, and that was the topic of Shabbat speech. And I got up and said, ladies and gentlemen, I read the journal cover to cover, but my most exciting part of the journal is on page 153. I have it here. And it's a picture. And under the picture it says, men and women going to Phillips Beach on a Sunday. And all of a sudden the member said, Rabbi, this is your favorite picture in the book? This is inappropriate for a rabbi to even look at such pictures. Men and ladies going to the beach on a Sunday afternoon in the summer. We thought that maybe you get excited from the old synagogue, I said, no, I want to show you the picture. And the picture's quite amazing. You see a man wearing shorts past his knee, socks, closed-toe shoes. He has a hat on, a button shirt. He's holding an umbrella. I don't know why he had an umbrella. It was a sunny day. He had an umbrella in his hand. He's standing next to his wife. She's wearing a house dress, past the elbows, past the knees. She has stockings, closed-toe shoes, a bonnet, and a pocketbook. And they're going to the beach. I said to myself, it could have said men and women on the way to Kal Nidre on Yom Kippur. And I would have said, great, Hazak Baruch, they were very religious. I would be happy if people would come to shul today the way Goyim used to go to the beach 100 years ago. And they write on the caption, because if you didn't come dressed to the beach, you can get a fine for indecent exposure. That was Goyim 100 years ago. Now, obviously, I don't go to the beach that often, but I don't know if they're still wearing bonnets and pocketbooks. I have guys in my shul don't wear socks. Forget about going to the beach. They don't wear socks to shul. So what happened? What happened is, again, you let society, you give society modesty. You let them decide modesty. Well, in one generation, they'll tell you this is what's the right code. And then 100 years later, they'll say, that's laughable. The dress code now is this. And it'll keep on changing. So you'll never know, well, what's the right thing? Were they right? Are we right? Is the right ahead of us? Maybe we didn't reach the right yet. How are you going to know? There's only one way. Bereshit bara Elohim rosh devarecha emet. You got to go back to the book, to the number 9. Aleph is the first letter in the alphabet, Mem is the middle letter, and Taf is the last letter. If it's Emet, it's got to be Emet from the beginning to the middle to the end. From 100 years ago to 100 years from now to the present. It does not change. It does not lend itself to relativism. It must be absolute. So I think that you chose the right name for your organization. Emet. Moshe Emet. B'torato emet. And we must thank God, Asher b'harbanu mikol ha'amim, that you chose us from all the nations. V'natan lanu torat emet. Not a synthetic Emily Post book of etiquette that changes with the wind, that's been modified and reprinted 15 times, and it'll be reprinted 15 more times before Mashiach comes. Let us recommit ourselves to our personal commitment to our Torah, but tonight, more importantly, let's recommit ourselves both financially and both mentally and morally and emotionally to this great organization. To you I say, Hezku v'ya'ames levavchem kol ha'myachalim l'Adonai. Amen. Thank you.
עם ישראל, לא לפחד, השם אלוקיך הולך איתך. עם ישראל